The Auburn Express.
You are now listening to The War Report LAUB Podcast. With your boy Ike Jones.
What's up in War Eagle, everybody? Ike Jones back. LAUB. We are talking about Auburn versus Alabama. Auburn's headed to Coleman Coliseum to take on the Tide. Auburn currently ranked number 8 in the national polls, number 1 in the SEC, taking on the Crimson Tide of Alabama, and they are ranked number nothing in the That's petty. I'm sorry. Y'all know I can't not do anything like that, but currently not ranked. But a quality basketball team. Listen, despite not being ranked, this team in the net is higher than Alabama. The net likes them a lot more because of what they've done so far this season. But let's just take a look at Auburn versus Alabama head-to-head. Today in the matchup, you've got Auburn Alabama with the slight edge in points per game, 89.2 versus 83.7. And then in points against, Auburn almost a 9-point differential, only surrendering 65, while Bama is almost giving up 75. So almost 10 points, actually. And the difference there. Field goal percentage, the slight edge to Bama, 48.8% versus Auburn's 47.3%. Rebounding, slight edge to Alabama, 39.3%. They're 0.2 rebounds more per game on average. Assists to Auburn, 18.5%. Blocks, Auburn's better at protecting the rim, and we'll get more into that here in just a moment. And then in steals per game, Auburn is up, and Auburn's done well this season, one of the best in the conference. As far as the statistical leaders for each team, Janai Broome still leading in points, rebounds, and blocks per game for Auburn, while Trey Donaldson is the assist leader and Katie Johnson leading in steals per game. For Alabama, Mark Sears is the leader of points, and Aaron Estrada. I keep wanting to call him Eric Estrada. He is absolutely not the actor from Chips, but Aaron Estrada, assists and steals per game, leading there, and then Grant Nelson rebounds and blocks for Alabama. But when we get down into the brass tacks of this matchup, for me, it's going to be about Auburn's ability to handle the guard play for Alabama. When you think about guards for them, you're thinking, of course, Mark Sears to me, and I said this last year when we played them. I don't remember whether I said this on any show that we had, but I definitely said it on Twitter at one point in time. Mark Sears is the engine of that team. He didn't get a lot of the credit last year because of what was going on with the star player there, but he's absolutely the engine of this team, and he's the guy that I think that if you have to be able to limit him in order for you to beat this Bama team. If you can figure out how to bottle him up, and that's exactly what happened in that Tennessee game. Now, he did have a slight injury in that game versus Tennessee, but Tennessee was able to figure out ways to keep Mark Sears under wraps, and that Bama offense just never really got going. Again, Brandon Miller got a lot of the hype last year, but in my opinion, Mark Sears was the guy that made it work. And he is, again, this year taking that additional step, now leading the team again in points per game. But the other guy, the transfer in Aaron Estrada, has been really good. He was good in that Tennessee game and being able to step in and give them some lift offensively. Both of those guys are shooting north of 30%. Mark Sears shooting over 40% from three, which is ridiculous considering he shoots quite a bit of them. But both of those guys are north of, more specifically, north of 35% from the three-point line. So those are guys that you, as an Auburn team, have to figure out how to keep under wraps, because they are going to be what kind of makes that offense go at any point in time during the game. This is going to be a tough road matchup for Auburn, despite the fact that I do believe that Auburn is the better team. Listen, I thought Kentucky was the better team. They just went on the road to South Carolina and took a big L. People were post having the 7-foot kid, the semi-pro player, whatever you call him, coming in. After him getting his eligibility people were saying Kentucky was the most complete team in the country. Or, how do you beat this team? And they went out there and they took a big time L to South Carolina. So this is going to be a situation where Auburn needs to be aware of the fact that, yes, you might be the better team, but the better team can get beat on any given night, especially when you consider how adept this Bama team is at scoring, right? So, Auburn has a really great defensive team. They're going to need to be on their P's and Q's to keep this Bama offense under wraps. This season, again, this team is scoring almost 90 points per game, 89.2 points per game, close to 80 points per game still in conference play. So they take a small dip once they've gotten into conference play, but still scoring almost 80 points per game in the conference. They get to the free throw line better than most teams in the conference. When you look at their free throw rate, they are number 4 in the conference in getting to the free throw line, still in the top 50 in the country in being able to get to the free throw line. And they shoot 78%, almost 79% in conference. So they're going to get to the free throw line and they're going to make their free throws. And listen, I don't want to get into the home crowd whistle, all that kind of thing. We know what it is when Auburn plays against this team in any sport. Whoever the official judge, referee, blah, 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 you ain't going to get favorable whistles, especially when you're there. But this is a team that you have to battle through that kind of adversity with. They're going to get to the line and they're going to shoot a healthy percentage from it. And they're pretty good from 2 and 3, right? You'll hear Bruce Pearl talk about, this team's better from 2 than they are from 3. This is a team that you need to run off of the 3-point line. Now, they really only have 2 or 3 guys that are going to be dynamic as 3-point shooters, but they still shoot a good percentage as a team, over almost 39% as a team. But when you look at the guys that you have to look out for, of course, Mark Sears is up there at the top. Aaron Estrada is up there at the top. Rylan Griffin has stepped up and done much better from the 3-point line this season. The only guys that are struggling from the 3-point line that if you had told me going into the season he would be a guy that would be in the bottoms of their team as far as 3-point percentage, Grant Nelson has not shot the ball particularly well this season. From 3 points, he is only shooting 26.8% right now, and he was supposed to be kind of the prototypical stretch 4-5 for them this year that was going to be able to step out and be an additional ball handler in the mold of what a Brandon Miller was, and a dynamic guy on the perimeter for them as well as on the interior. And he just hasn't been that so far this season for them. Now, he is rebounding the ball fairly well at almost 6 boards per game, but just on the season so far, he has not shot the ball particularly well. Now, as far as their ability to defend, that's going to be a whole other story. This Bama team, I think, was a better defensive team last year than they are this season. But they are still pretty good. Like when we talk about, points per game surrendered, they're still giving up over 70 points per game, which isn't great. Like I'm not, I don't want to hype them up as them, but they're not as good as they've been traditionally. They're not great defensively. But what they do fairly well is limit 3-point opportunities for other teams, and they're able to run you off the 3-point line. I think for Auburn in this game, we talked about offensively, you need to be able to shut down their guard play. I think offensively in this game, Auburn needs to be able to get to the rim and be able to be really good on the interior in this game and really dominate the paint. This team in Bama has not been great at, without Charles Bediako there, their interior defense has not been as good this season. When we take a look at just some of the defensive stats for this team, in their ability to rebound the basketball, they're down at number 7 on the defensive glass. Offensive glass, they're up at the top, but on the defensive glass, they're prone to give up some offensive rebounds. So Auburn needs to be able to get in there and get second chance points versus this team. They are, block shots per game. They're not doing very well overall in block shots per game. They're not a team that defensively on the interior has done particularly well at stopping paint touches. As far as their 2-point percentage defense right now, they are, let's take a look at this, amongst the lowest in the conference right now at number 12 in the conference in defending the paint so far this season. So Auburn needs to really be able to the flex cuts and all of those things that Auburn does really well to get assists, and they get a lot of assisted threes out of that. But they need to be able to get a lot of those paint touches. This is a game where I expect for Bama to try to play a lot of zone to pack the paint and stop Auburn from being able to get the interior. Or at least on the low block into Janai Broome. I think they're going to pay a lot of attention to Janai Broome in this game and try to force Auburn into taking threes and feeling comfortable from outside. But this is a game where your high post guys have to be able to do their thing. And I'm talking about Jalen Williams. I'm talking about Chad Baker-Mazara. Those two guys really need to be able to impact this game, whether that's in points or assists, but they need to be able to get into the high post against the zone, because I do expect Bama to play zone. If Bama plays man against Auburn tonight, I don't know how. I mean, it's going to have to be a very, like, they're going to have to be doubling the post a lot. I just don't think a matchup with Janai Broome is going to work well in the post for Bama. They don't have the kind of shot blocking that will allow you to do that. Maybe they decide to slide somebody else besides Grant Nelson over to be the primary defender on Janai and have Grant Nelson be the help guy, to be the second guy coming over to block shots. I don't know, but this is a game where Janai Broome should be able to get what he wants at points throughout the game. But again, I expect for Bama to try to come out and play a little zone to mitigate what they don't have as far as interior defense is concerned, so that they can roam a little bit more and not get caught. Because, Auburn's going to play a lot of high screen and roll stuff. They're going to, if they're going to go into a man defense is Alabama, Auburn's going to play more of that 5-out style, 4 out, and try to make sure that the paint is going to be open and keep Grant Nelson and the other shot blockers that they do have away from that and make them have to react differently. So I'm expecting to be able to see that sort of thing from Auburn tonight. In terms of what I hope that what Auburn is going to do as far as defensively against this team. Again, this is a team that shoots the ball effectively from three. So I'm expecting for this Auburn team to come out and really close the airspace and make them drive the basketball. It's going to be interesting. I don't think a zone is the right approach against a team that shoots the three like Bama does, but they have a very dynamic motion offense that they can go into, and I think Auburn will need to be able to just close the airspace. The guard play for Auburn defensively is going to be really important. Now, what Auburn does particularly well that Tennessee as well does is switches a lot of stuff out front. And this year they have guards that are a little bit taller, a little bit longer to be able to close that airspace more effectively. So I'm going to be looking at the foul situation for our guards, number one, and then how well and effective we are in switching some of the action that Bama's going to want to do. The primary issue that I see that Bama's run into so far this season when watching them is that they aren't patient in their offensive sets. They get into a lot of one-on-one action and the ball gets stuck, right? So it's going to be in somebody's hands, and Mark Sears is going to dribble the ball around a lot. He's had a very high usage rate this year. It's going to get stuck often. If they're sharing the ball, they're a much better basketball team. That's most teams that are better when they're sharing the basketball. Bama has not done a really great job of sharing the basketball this season, so Auburn needs to be able to make them stay in that mindset of, your turn, now it's your turn, now it's your turn, and be able to lock up defensively. This is a game that Auburn absolutely can win, but if Bama gets hot from three, they're able to beat anybody in the country. So it's really going to be incumbent on them of running them off the three-point line and then contesting when they get into the lane. So this is a game where a guy like Dylan Cartwell needs to stay out of foul trouble, be patrolling the paint and being able to get in there and absolutely affect what they're doing when he has his minutes. If he's going to play, the high teens minutes like he has been recently and having effective, 10 to 12 points in that offensively. Defensively, this needs to be a 2 or 3 shot block game for Dylan Cardwell, in my opinion, because Auburn's going to want to run them off of the three, get in there in the two. Cardwell staying out of foul trouble, be able to get a couple of blocks in this one. All right, I want to get over and listen to read what you all have to say. I appreciate you guys jumping in here with me. We're right here, LAUB Town, with our members, and we'll start it off with Dead Tempsey, who says, "Let's effing go. We tearing down Coleman tonight. War Eagle." Looking forward to seeing what they're going to do. I am going to be hitting the road. It's going to be a little rainy out here, so y'all keep your boy covered, and hopefully nothing crazy happens out there on the road with all the rain that's going to be happening. Matthew Cofield says the only way we lose tonight is if we beat ourselves. I think we are objectively a better team. I don't disagree. I think top to bottom, Auburn is a better team. When you talk about, which I haven't really gotten into, is the minutes distribution for this Alabama team. Let's see here. Far as minutes per game, they have 5 guys that are up over 20 minutes per game. And then it drops down to 16, 15, 13, 11 in their rotation. Mark Sears, again, playing heavy minutes for this team. In that Tennessee game, he got into some early foul trouble, and he was getting frustrated by the guards at Tennessee that were doing a really great job of keeping him off of his left hand going downhill because he likes to get to the left. He's a left-handed guy. Same thing with Estrada, another left-handed guy. They want to get to their left hand going downhill. Estrada very crafty in the lane, though, with, he's taller, so he's able to finish a little bit differently. Very crafty in the lane. He's got like a little spin move situation that he does where he does like a little left hand jump hook off the bank. It's not really a hook, but just kind of like a push shot off the bank that he does pretty frequently that I think is a very good shot for him to be able to take. But they want to get downhill on their left hand. Tennessee did a great job of forcing them to go right, number one, so getting them away from their strong and effective hand. But then number two, making it difficult for them to get free rim runs. So it frustrated them quite a bit. So I expect Auburn to try to do something very similar to them. But they are very top heavy as far as what their minutes distribution. Again, Mark Sears averaging over 30 minutes per game. Estrada, 28 minutes per game. Grant Nelson's averaging almost 26 minutes per game. And then Rylan Griffin is averaging almost 26 minutes per game, right? So that's 4 guys right there that are all averaging over 25 minutes per game. So when Auburn gets teams into that second unit, that's where Auburn's able. And this is why I disagree with just about everyone who says that Chris Moore should come off of the bench and Chad Baker-Mazara should be starting. Because when that second unit comes in and Chad Baker-Mazara is matched up against the other team's second level 3 or 4, he's eating their lunch because he's a better basketball player than them, right? And so it gives you a boost coming off of the bench in what he's able to provide you, number one. Or if they're playing heavy minutes for a 3-4 and he comes in, he's coming in with fresh legs versus somebody who's been out there playing for a minute. So I like the rotation as it stands right now. Now, you wish you could get a little bit more offensively from Chris Moore, but I don't think you need it. I think you need to be able to continue to play really sound defense. Not saying that Chad Baker-Mazara doesn't play sound defense. He absolutely does. But I think that when you go to that second unit and you have guys like Trey Donaldson who run your club absolutely wonderfully, and then you're able to close with guys like Chad Baker-Mazara, Trey Donaldson, KD if you need to. I think that that's a really effective way, and Coach Bruce Pearl has done a marvelous job with managing the minutes and the rotations with this team so far this season. So I disagree with people who say that Chad should be starting. But yes, top to bottom, better team in my opinion. Valencia agreeing with something I said. I said the same thing, shut him down and make him turn the ball over. That was about the point of Mark Sears being their engine for their defense. So Mark Sears, again, Estrada has been the guy who's been the high assist man for this team. Mark Sears, in his assist to turnover ratio, it's something like, he's got 3.6 assists and he's averaging 2.3 turnovers. That's not a great assist to turnover ratio for him, right? So again, he's a high usage guy. He gets the ball in his hands, and the ball tends to get stuck with Mark Sears this season. So expect him to, especially if they're not getting points early in the game, he gets frustrated. He starts trying to force his way to the basket, forcing up some threes. Like, that's just kind of the player that he has morphed into this season for them. When they had a primary go-to guy and a scorer with Brandon Miller last year, he was a bit more deferential to him, and he could come and be kind of a second scorer and average in the high or the low teens per game, and they would be fine because they are going to get 15 to 17 from Miller. They're not getting that this year. So he's up now to almost 20 points per game, but he's also been a reason why that offense has been a bit more stagnant because he's such a high usage guy. So hopefully we'll be able to keep him under wraps this game. Wizard Dragon says Sears is shooting around 48% from 3. Yep, he is currently Oh, you said 48%. Let me make sure. Oh, yep. He is 47.3%. I don't know what I said earlier. If you're correcting me, But yeah, 47.3% is what he's shooting from the 3-point line. So if I said something differently earlier, I apologize. But yeah, he is definitely been a dynamic 3-point shooter for this team. Justin Williams jumps in and says Bruce needs this win because he's 3-5 against Coach Oates. I think Bruce needs this win more than just for that, but just to keep the lead in the conference right now. Right, only unbeaten team right now. Bama's only got one loss. Kentucky's only got one loss. So you get into a scenario where now you are 2 games ahead in the loss column for Bama. So in the march towards trying to win the SEC regular season title, this is a big win. And on the road so far this season, you've gone to Arkansas, you've gotten a big win. You've gone to Vanderbilt, which was a quasi-home environment, and you've gotten a win there. But you lost your only other true road game on the season when you went to App State. So you need to be able to, number one, show that you can win games on the road in tough environments. But number two, be able to give your team the confidence that they're able to close out stuff away from Neville Arena. So this is important for them for just the conference going forward, because there's some tough road games still left on this season. At Tennessee, you're going to, I think, go to Mississippi State, right? So you need to be able to stack some wins earlier so that you can absorb some potential letdowns later if they happen. So hoping this team can continue down the road towards road wins. Brad Browning says, I don't know the actual stats, but it feels like Auburn has trouble guarding threes. Is it just me, or is there some validity to that? I think that is more of a feel than anything, but let's take a look at what the statistics say. As far as defensive percentage, Auburn is number 2 in the conference, 18th in the country in 3-point defense, surrendering 29.1%. On the year, right? So that is, they're top 20 in the country on 3-point defense so far this year. They did a really great job against that Ole Miss team, who was one of the better 3-point shooting teams in the country, and running them off of the 3-point line and giving them tough contests when they were taking. I think this team has gotten progressively better defensively. Early in the season, I think that it felt a little bit more like that because you were seeing a lot of open threes out there, but I think that they've solidified their defensive rotations a lot more. And so teams just aren't getting those open looks from threes consistently like they were earlier in the season. JBSMV says Trey's going to bully that boy, talking about him versus Mark Sears. Trey's definitely, a guy that I think that's going to be an interesting thing to see, is how Alabama is going to deal with the changing dynamic of what the offensive guard plays, particularly from the point guard position, is going to be. If Mark Sears is going to play his typical minutes per game, again, he is averaging, let me make sure I have this up here, 30 minutes per game. If he's going to continue to be a 30-minute per game guy, those 10 minutes when he's off the floor, then somebody's going to be out there getting toasted. I'm sorry. I just don't think that any backup guard is going to be able to handle either of the starting or backup guards for Auburn. And then I think that you're going to get into a scenario where you're going to have a very tired Mark Sears who's going to be running around chasing fresh legs all day. And I think that that's going to be another key thing for Auburn. Put Mark Sears in as much action as you can defensively. Make him guard the entirety of possessions. Make him run around chasing guys around screens, which is why, again, I think that Bama's going to try to play more zone in this game. But you need to make Mark Sears work if he's going to play 30 minutes, make him work all 30 of them. Make sure that he is going to be the least effective player out there on that court because he's tired for the vast majority of the game. Test his endurance in this game. Dave Bush says, run them off the 3-point line and limit the second chance points. Postgame needs to control on the offense. We win. Yeah, I agree. This is what I was saying earlier. You got to run them off of the 3 and make them contested 2s. And I think that's been the toughest thing for Auburn this year. Again, not a great team at protecting the rim so far this season. Dylan Cardwell's done really well in his minutes. Janai Broom, though he's got good blocks per game average, I just don't think that he's been the difference between, and I hate to compare people to kind of the gold standard of rim protection and Walker Kessler, but the difference between a Walker Kessler and what you have in a guy like Janai Broom or even a Dylan Cardwell, more so Janai than Dylan, is that Janai gets a lot of blocks per game, but he doesn't affect as the number of shots that a guy like Walker Kessler or even a Dylan Cardwell does, where he might not get the block, but his presence near the rim makes it where it's difficult for people to get clean looks at that stuff. So though again he's going to have a high number of blocks per game on the season, he's going to end up averaging a good amount. The impact that he has on the paint is not felt in the same way because Walker Kessler, true 7-footer, and then he was just really good at utilizing his left hand, his offhand to be able to impact shots. Walker Kessler is a different animal, and he's still doing that in the league right now. So that wasn't just some fluke. But that's been a kind of a difference in how Auburn's able to defend in the paint, is that they don't have that true rim protector out there. And, I talked about this with Alabama. Alabama doesn't have the Charles Bediako in there this year. They're even worse when it comes to rim protection this season. So Auburn needs to be able to dominate, as you said, the bigs, the front line needs to be able to dominate. The front court needs to be able to dominate in this one to make sure that Alabama feels punished on the boards and feels punished in the paint. So looking forward to seeing how that plays out. Kyle Corley says, we know this Auburn team is special. It's now time to put everyone else on notice. This is going to be a big game to be able to do that. Again, Bama's not ranked, but it is a team that by Vegas odds, ESPN odds, if you look at stuff like the T ranking on this, or if you look at just any of the predictive analytics, Bama is better, higher ranked in Ken Palm and all of those things than Auburn. The statistical analysis and data points all say that Bama is the better team from, what they like from the modeling of just who they've played so far and how they fared in those games. But this is a game that Auburn needs to get to put those statistical models on notice. Hey, it's not a fluke. I know we lost to Baylor, the only other, the big non-con game that we have. I know we lost on the road to App State, but we have been putting the absolute hams to everybody else. They've been putting hands and feet on every other opponent this season, and it's time for them to be able to show that in this one. Valencia jumps back in and says they need this quad one to add to their resume for seeding in the NCAA. Absolutely. This is a big game for them to be able to get a better resume. David Bush jumps back in and says Sears has been playing around 35 plus minutes per game in conference, which is even worse. His minutes per game in conference have gone up. They've needed him to be able to play more minutes to be able to be as effective as they need to be offensively. And with the usage rate that he has, it just means that their offense, without him in the game, their offense is stagnant. With him in the game, they need to make it really. I need to see if Mark Sears is going to be taking shots in this game. It needs to be late shot clock stuff where he's dribbled the ball around for 20 seconds once he gets it past the half court and forcing up a late look, or it needs to be him shooting an early, probably bad by most accounts, shot in the shot clock and it be a one shot and done, whether it's a make or miss. Contest and then grab the rebound end of that possession for them. That's what it needs to look like offensively for them tonight versus this defense. JBS MV says Chaney Johnson breakout game. I don't know. I mean, this could be a good game for Chaney. I think that Chaney is a guy who, I wouldn't expect a breakout for him on the road. I think he needs a home breakout game before I expect a road breakout game for him. But he is going to be a guy who I think will have an opportunity to be very impactful on this game just from his athleticism standpoint. TS is correcting me and says Auburn is now higher in Ken Palm. I haven't actually looked at Ken Palm today, so I apologize. But yeah, they've been rated higher in almost all of the rating systems that I've looked at recently. And so I don't know why they favor Bama. Well, I do know why they favor Bama so much, but Auburn's making moves right now. And this is a game that should be able to prove a lot of people right. Max Effort says, I want this one bad. Listen, I don't think anybody wants to be able to lose to that team across the state. So we as Auburn fans are definitely hoping for the correct outcome in this, and the correct being the Auburn Tigers getting the victory. All right, that's enough of me rattling on. We will definitely talk more about this game. I won't be on the post game tonight, but I will give you guys some final thoughts and reactions tomorrow for this game, because I will be at the game tonight. So I'll be on the road. So hopefully I'll get a chance to talk to you guys tomorrow, since we don't have a morning drop. But before y'all get out of here, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share the content. We'll be back at you guys with more LAUB Town stuff tomorrow. But until then, and as always, War Eagle.